In this video we'll talk about how a checkbox control that has been configured to display as a button list can be dynamically repopulated. So you can see this simple UX component has a list control displaying products from the products table in Northwind, and on the right hand side we have a checkbox control that has been configured as a button list. So you can see I can go and make multiple selections, but when I change the selected row in the list control, the list of choices in the checkbox control gets reset and the check marks get removed. So if we go back now to design mode, we can see that there's our list control and there's our checkbox control. The checkbox control has been configured to display as a button list, and the selected image is defined over there. So the selected image is the little check mark that appears when you make a selection in the checkbox. So first let's go to the list control, and we can see that the list control is based on a SQL data source pulling data from the categories table in Northwind, and then we're displaying the category ID column and the category name column. And I'll just point out that we've set the width of category name to flex 4 and this to flex 1, which means that the total width is 5. That's 1 plus 4. So therefore the category ID is 1/5 or 20% of the total width of the list. So then we'll go back to list properties, and we can see that in the onSelect event we're calling a JavaScript function called populate button list. So now let's go and take a look at the function that does the actual populate button list. But before we do that, I'm going to switch to a simple checkbox control over here. So you can see here we have a very simple checkbox control that has two choices, choice 1 and choice 2, and it's also been configured to display as a button list. So there we go. And now if I right click on this and view source, what I'm going to see is that the data for the checkbox control looks like this. So the HTML is what is displayed. Then this is the actual value that the checkbox control, that the button list will render. And then you can see that we have two additional properties, the icon when no selection has been made. So this is just the null icon. So there's a special icon in CSS A5 system which is a null icon, and then the pressed icon, which is the image that we specified in the builder. So you can see that the checkbox control is being populated with an array. This is a JavaScript array, and inside the array we have JSON objects. So we're populating this checkbox control with an array of JSON objects. So it's going to be important for us to know the syntax here, because we're going to be generating this JavaScript when we repopulate the button list. So let's go back now to our component and then go over to the JavaScript, and we can see here's the JavaScript function that gets called when the user selects an item in the list control. And we can see that all that this is doing is an AJAX callback calling into an XBasic function called repopulate. So let's go and take a look now at repopulate. So here's the repopulate function, and actually we don't need that, so I'll just delete that. So the repopulate function says basically what was the ID of the product ID field that was submitted. So since the list control itself has been configured, let's go back to that list control. The list control has been configured to submit the category ID field. So when you click on a list and then the AJAX callback takes place, the current value of the category ID will be submitted. So we'll go back here to our XBasic, and we're saying that if the value of the list control is null, then is not null, then we'll set list ID to whatever that value was. Otherwise we'll just set it to 1. So this is the initial condition over here. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing our discussion on how to dynamically repopulate a checkbox control that has been configured as a button list. So here you can see this is the ID of the the category ID that we'd like to select products for, and we've just said that in the initial case there is going to be no value over here, so we're going to just use a value of 1. So here we go, and we open our connection to Northwinds and we define our SQL statements. So we're going to select product ID and product name from products where the category ID is equal to the passed in value, and we're going to set the ID argument in our SQL : arguments object, which was created over there, with the value of list ID. So we execute the query, and now we have a result set that contains all of the products for the given category. So now we need to basically convert that result set into a JavaScript array of JSON objects using this syntax that we discussed previously. So first we'll do here is we'll create a template of the data that we want. So the template has curly bracket HTML, and then what we want is to retrieve data from the result set for the product name field, and then we want to retrieve value, and then we want that's the HTML property, and you can see that we're using ds.data, which is data source.data product name, and then we need to JS escape that in case there are any single quotes or other unsafe data in the actual data. So there's our first property in the JSON object. Then the second property is the value property, and that's going to be set to product ID. Then we need to get the pressed icon. So the pressed icon, basically we've chosen the same value that is in the builder. So if we go back to the builder over here, we can see that this is the value that we've chosen over there for the pressed icon. And then for the unpressed icon, we've chosen again the null image over there. So that gives us the pressed icon image, and that gives us the null image. So now that we have our JS template, we call the merge data into template function, which takes this result set and then merges the data into this template. So this is just like a fancy mail merge function. And then we just free the result set and close the connection. So now we have our JSON data, but if you look at our template, we have a trailing comma in the template over there because each item in the array needs to be comma separated. So we need to remove the last comma, otherwise we'll get a JavaScript error. So rtrim jdata comma, this is the code that's going to remove the comma from the data for the very last item in the row, and then we add in the leading square bracket and the trailing square bracket. So basically we now have a JavaScript a variable that looks exactly like this, excepting that of course we have multiple objects here, one for each product inside the array. So now continuing with the JavaScript, we can see that then we now construct our JavaScript code that's going to be sent back to the client as the response from the AJAX callback. So we're saying var data, so in other words we're initializing a JavaScript variable called data and setting that equal to JS data, which is our array of JSON objects. Then we're getting a pointer to the checkbox control. Then we're going to populate the checkbox control, and then we're going to set all of the existing values back to nothing, so that all of the choices that were checked become unchecked. So by doing set value false, we cause all the values to get unchecked. And then finally our JavaScript, our XBasic function is called populate, so we return populate to JS. So this is now the AJAX response that is being sent back from the AJAX callback. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing now with the video on how to repopulate a checkbox control that has been configured as a button list. So we'll go back now to working preview, and now we can see that as we make our selections here, the button list is updating. When we check items in the button list and then change the selection, the check marks are automatically removed. So finally, let's just go back to the XBasic function that handles the callback and just put in a debug 1. So we can actually step through the code and analyze what it's doing. So we'll go back there to working preview. So now you can see this is the initial rendering of the components. So there's no value in this control here, so we're setting the default value to 1. Here we go ahead and we open our connection, we set the argument, and now we have our template and we have our result set, and now we're going to merge data into the template. So now if we look at JS data, we can see that what we have in the debugger here is just a CRLF delimited list of JSON objects. So there's the HTML property, you can see there's the value property, there's the pressed icon, and there's the regular icon. And if we scroll to the end of the list, we can see there's a comma at the very end of the list over there. So now we continue, and now we basically remove the last comma and add in the opening and closing square brackets. So now you can see if we go to the end of the list now, the trailing comma has been removed, and now we construct our JavaScript response. And so here's the complete response that's going to be sent back to the browser. So we're creating a JavaScript variable called data, and then we're basically getting a pointer to the checkbox control. We're populating the checkbox control with the data, and then we're setting all of the choices in the checkbox control back to nothing. So this is a very powerful technique for dynamically repopulating a button list or a checkbox which is configured as a button list. Of course, the same comments would apply to a regular button list control. So thank you very much for watching.